My name is Salimeh Tabrizi, and I'm one of the founding board members of the Canadian Psychedelic Association of Canada. And at the PAC, the why for why we exist is to awaken a revolution of well-being. And our vision is people living in harmony with each other and nature. And as part of our mission, which is a collective vision, the mission is to educate and advocate for access to all psychedelics as a basic human right. Great. And I see some friends just sharing with us where they're from. Right. I would like to continue with acknowledging for us to do a land acknowledgement. And I know each one of us, Darlene, Julie, and I are joining from different places, but I would like to do a land acknowledgement from the place that I have been for many years, which is Vancouver. And so I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional and ancestral unceded territory of the Musqueam people. And currently, I actually reside in the southern part of Costa Rica. And in that way, I would like to acknowledge the indigenous of the Baruka Nation who reside in the southern part and have held beautiful traditions and land stewardship for many years. And many of you may have already seen me and known me from my work with the PAC. The PAC was founded in 2019, and I myself am a therapist by education, and currently I work with 2 clinics out of Mexico. I'm supporting special op veterans who are going through ibogaine and 5-MeO. And on the other side of it, I help my own clients go through ayahuasca ceremonies, both the integration, the facilitation, and the integration afterwards. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it to our esteemed panelists. I'm so excited to have Darlene and Julie, 2 incredible and not only women, but I feel like humans and also elders that I feel so fortunate to know. And thank you so much, Darlene and Julie, for saying yes to being part of this webinar. And I'll pass it over to Darlene first to share a little bit about how she got started in this work, what she has done, which both of them have done incredible work, and what really lights her up during the current times. Over to you, Darlene.
Thank you, Salimeh. I can't express enough about being invited to this today, and in really enjoying, and I'll get into that a bit, about working with people that are open to the fact of psychedelics. So I am a medical intuitive, a multidimensional mediator, and a timeline architect, and I've been doing that for over 35 years. And I think the medical medium is probably what most people are steeped in or have an understanding about. I was always interested in how humans, ticked. And it wasn't until much later that I realized I was profoundly moved by the fact that I was saying how humans ticked. So I didn't really think that I was a human growing up, apparently. And so that was a bit of a shock to me to go, oh yeah, humans. Like, I guess because I want to know how they tick, I don't feel like one. But the medical intuitive part is something that I started with and I enjoyed as a therapist and as a massage therapist. And I did that for quite a few years. And the multidimensional mediator, I started out as a channel in the early 90s, and that was kind of by accident. I was listening to a recording that my mother had done in a inner child workshop. She wanted to understand something, so they brought her back to an earlier time, which was probably 10, 15 years prior to. And they recorded it and they wanted me to listen to it. And when I listened to it, it was really about her being not abducted, but where 2 off-planet beings were in her bedroom and she was paralyzed and she was screaming, and there was that place that what happened is his voice came up inside me that I had never heard before. It was a male voice and it said, "We did not do that." And I was kind of shocked by that, and I wanted to know what that was because I wasn't used to channeling. I had no idea what channeling was. In fact, being raised in religion, it was not appropriate to channel. And I started channeling this being that was off planet. I found out later that he needed to come in because there was a group of people that I were working with, and it was his past life that he needed to process through them. But it was also me. So it was one of my incarnations that came in without the expectation that I would ever hear them. When he said, "Oh, it wasn't me," it was a shock to him and to the beings that were part of that council that I even heard it. So that moved for about 5 years, and I didn't really enjoy the channeling.
Mm.
Liked it because it was different and it was exciting, and I could see things that were happening, but I felt disconnected from it. So I had asked if there was another method that I could use, and they said, yeah, I'd be a mediator. And so that way I could imprint what was going on. I could tell people what was happening in my consciousness that they were giving me the downloads, and I could let them in if I wanted to, but I also could interact with. And so that was the multidimensional mediator. But what I enjoy most is the timeline architect. And what I find is going back and changing, having someone visualize or do the work that comes up for them in a session, that they address their woundedness or their ancestral woundedness in whatever timeline that is. I'm very visual as an artist, so things come through very clearly. You were a male, this is what's happening. Here's your father, the father that you had back then is now your sister now. Like, it weaves in this whole story that really makes sense to them, and they can start to process what happened in that timeline and heal it. The interesting thing is, I'm finding how much it changes their present life. Like, there'll be, you weave out of the timeline, you weave out to change it, and then you have to come back into it. And when you come back into it, it affects your life here. And then you weave out of it to heal it again. It depends on how long the timeline is and how significant it is. But what lights me up the most is working with people who are steeped in finding themselves through psychedelics, because it's like having a team, because there's so much that they're unraveling, and they're getting more information, they're getting downloads, they're getting, they're tapping into their multidimensional selves, they're clearing themselves. And because they're choosing to do it with plant medicine, it's very significant in their willingness to open and to find out more about who they are. And it's not just talk therapy, they're doing something, they're proactive in saying, yes, I want to be a better human, I want to heal, I want to help others. And that's what lights me up. I mean, Salimeh has introduced me to quite a few phenomenal people that I really enjoy working with. And it's not just them, it's those that really want, they're embracing whatever psychedelics are out there that work for them, because not everyone does. And it's bringing in more clarity, not only for them, but that ripple effect of how they bring it out into the world. The mycelium, like, I see people that really are embracing that they're interconnected, like the mycelium that really connects all of us on this planet, right? And then we shoot off spores, right? And those awakenings, those spores go to our community and our family, and that ripples through. So we're really working undercover, but it's doing a great job.
I appreciate that share so much, Darlene. And I feel like, I've been so blessed to have experienced your work personally, and then to also work with you, with my clients, because I think one thing that me and you and Julie have in common is that we really help individuals to align to their higher purpose and to access their soul mission, and to be able to really take the information that they have access to, and we kind of support and hold space for, and in being able to clear so much karma. And I think this is such an exciting piece of the times that we live in, is that, and then access to psychedelics, which is an accelerator and plant medicines, and to be able to really clear out past, present, future timelines, as you're saying. And so, yeah, it's been incredible seeing you work. And I always tell people, I'm like, I actually say about both of you that so much information comes through both of your sessions, that, you know, people should record it and then be able to really like
Do
comb it,
record it.
comb through it. Yes. Yes. So thank you for sharing, Darlene. And of course, there's so much more to share there, but we'll open up more of that. Julie, over to you.
Wow, well, I'm not sure how to share myself here. I've been at astrology for over 50 years, and so I started in my 20s. Figure out how old I am. And you know, it's funny about the psychedelic thing. Being a person who was in my 20s and the 70s, I guess, I always assumed that psychedelics was the thing that people should use. You know, it was just part of what I did, but it's not something that I feel specifically everyone has to do, or I can't explain it. It's just there. I think it's fantastic that there's an association, and I like, you know, I love it, but I'm not, it's not really a part of my work in particular, right? I'm an astrologer, and I mean, I got fired from a lot of jobs, and I had to do something, and I woke up one morning and it was like, oh my God, I could be that. And I never looked back. It was like love at first sight. Um, so yeah, so I was there. It's funny though, I also was a massage therapist because I didn't think I could ever make a living as an astrologer, but I never could have made a living as a massage therapist, to be honest, much better at astrology. So it's been with me for my whole life. And I think of it in the realm, which I think is very psychedelic in its own way, of the psychopomp. You know, that somehow when you're looking at someone's chart, or when you're looking at the world situation and you're communicating about it, you're always channeling it, and that the words have a kind of transmission to them. And it's a different kind of speak than when I'm, you know, saying what's for dinner. That's for sure. It definitely has an energy to it. And I don't like to question it too much, right? I just like to do it. And I marvel at it. I mean, it's fun and it's meaningful, and it causes people to transform the way they see their lives, which then transforms their lives, me included. So it's been incredibly helpful as a tool for navigating trauma, which we all seem to have, and especially the trauma of the collective in terms of what we're going through at the moment. And I go back and forth now, especially I think because of age. I go back and forth between the collective and like that we are all on this journey together. But I'm really focused in on the individuals whose charts I read, you know, and the conversation. It feels like a conversation. I can't tell you how often I'm thinking about, you know, I'm going to talk to someone about Mars, and the next thing out of their mouth before I've said anything is a Mars thing. Happens all the time, right? So I still marvel and enjoy the way that it works. And I love all of it. I love writing, I love teaching, and I love counseling. Um, and I'm just glad to be able to do it. And I hope, you know, I'll be doing it as long as I can talk and sit up, I guess I'll be doing it. So I'm not sure what excites me the most. It's sort of whatever I'm doing it, but astrology is what excites me the most in my life. So, but you know, I'm learning now that I'm getting older that I can't always be excited. Sometimes I also like to knit. I need the balance. But anyway, I love astrology. I'm totally, it's psychedelic in its own nature, but I absolutely have an affinity for the kind of work that you both do. I mean, the channeling as well. So I'm very excited to be here. And thank you for asking me. It's lovely to be with other people doing this kind of thing. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, Julie. And yes, you've shared with me some of your own experiences with plant medicines and what has come through to you, and having those experiences very, very early on, you know, and yeah, I love that you both have the connection to the plants and the fungi. Um, let's dive in. I know we have, 45 minutes of our conversation, and then to the participants who are here with us, please go ahead and put in your questions as they come through our discussion, and I will take a look. And also we will leave some space. We'll leave half an hour at the end of the 45 minutes to bring your questions forward to Darlene and Julie. So, Julie, astrologers, I feel like you guys have had codes for many years, and the ancients looked to the cosmos for information. They were very attuned to the patterns and the cycles, and I feel like everything that we have are, as humans, are based on the cycles of empires rising and empires imploding, and the rhythm of nature, which we're so disconnected from. So right now it feels like as our awakening is happening, more and more people are tuning to the cycles of nature, the moon cycles, and then now even more so to the bigger planetary cycles. And so this is a very exciting time as people are, tuning in. And I wanted to ask you, because we are going through a major shift also because of the outer planets, many of them changing signs in a short span of time. Tell us a little bit about what happened with Pluto, what just happened on Sunday with Neptune, what's going to happen with Saturn, and as well as Jupiter.
And Uranus, don't forget Uranus. The gods hate to be ignored. Okay, so short description is that starting at the end of March of 2023 and going on until 2026, end of April, the three outer planets have been changing sign, and they're all changing from what you might call yin signs to yang signs. So Pluto was first, Neptune is second, Uranus is third. And the three outer planets they're called transpersonal. They couldn't care less about our individual lives. They represent the collective and the zeitgeist, right? The sweeping political changes or climate changes or whatever it is. They represent sweeping changes. And so Pluto moving from Pluto, oh, there's so much, you could talk about this forever, but when the United States was born, they had Pluto in Capricorn. So Pluto returned to the sign of their birth, and that took them into this particular kind of spiral. Then it entered Aquarius, and now it's in Aquarius. Aquarius we've all heard of the age of Aquarius, which we're kind of kicking and screaming our way towards. And Pluto is the planet of deep, deep transformation. It's interesting. I was thinking before we started talking that Pluto is about minerals. It's about what's under the ground. Neptune is about fossil fuels. So Neptune, of course, is the one that just changed sign, and Neptune went from Pisces into Aries. So Aries is it's a much more expressive, explosive kind of sign, and it's Neptune rules the great dream, the great illusion that reality is real, the dream that we are living a real thing. And it's very hard to wake up in Neptune's realm. But Neptune is the collective unconscious. And there's a thing in Neptune's water, right? So you don't want to think of water catching fire because then you have an oil spill. But the idea of Neptune in Aries, or the idea of Neptune in any sign, is that it's the collective unconscious coming together. So I think in Pisces, it was very difficult what happened, but it showed us a lot about human suffering and what we can and can't do about it. And it brought us pandemics, and it brought us together as a world, like it or not. And in a way, it's almost like it brought the notion that, oh, it must feel as bad to other people as it would to me if I had to leave home and never go back, that kind of thing. Because it's, there's more of that. We know people now who have had that experience. But in Aries, it's like, whoa, it's very different. So in Aries, you could think of it as like it's looking and it's searching for the way it's going to coalesce and catch fire in a kind of identity that's going to allow humans. It's very hard to put into words because it's collective and identity. Maybe Darlene will have a way of giving this an image, but in a way you could say it's about the fact that we wish there was one person who could channel all that energy. And of course, it has to be the one person has to be me. So yeah, that's just, we just stepped into that one. And then Uranus is different in a sense that it's very innovative, right? So Uranus has been in Taurus and it's been very much a wrecking ball in terms of the economy and the climate, you could say. It's just, it breaks things. But in Gemini, where it's going, it's much more clever and problem solving and very innovative. Aquarius also rules AI, right? So there's a lot going on about what to do with the internet. I don't know if AI in particular, but what to do with the internet and the way it's kind of damaging the human brain, but also connecting the humans to each other. It's a very big kettle of fish. So the perspective of astrologers, I think, in general, overall, seeing these three planets make these three ingresses, they're called, into new signs, from yin signs to yang signs, was, okay, bring on the revolution. So here we are. It's absolutely a chaos and a revolution. But it's a period from 23 to 26, right? Spring of 23 to spring of 26, and then away we go. So there's a sense that we're starting and stopping a lot. So Saturn goes into Aries, which is the same as Neptune, at the end of May, and it only stays there until, that's the other thing to know. Pluto is in Aquarius, but Neptune will go back and forth, and it won't actually be in Aries and stay there for a while until the end of January of 26. And Uranus will go into Gemini in July and stay there till November. Then it'll go back into Taurus, and then it'll go into Gemini and stay there after at the end of April. And Saturn is a really interesting player in this, because Saturn's going to make favorable aspects to Pluto and favorable aspects to Uranus and conjunction to Neptune. And Saturn contracts things and defines them and shows you what you're really dealing with. Saturn says, this is reality. That those other planets, they're transpersonal. I'm personal. I'm the structure. I'm the mission. I'm the thing that has to get done. So we could all take stock between May 24th and September 1st while Saturn is in Aries, because somehow the mission will show up there. And then the last thing I'll say about this picture that's very interesting is that in on June 9th, I think, I'm getting my dates confused because there's July 9th, June 9th. Anyway, beginning of June, Jupiter goes into Cancer. And right off the bat, between the day it goes into Cancer and the day that and the end of June, it's going to square Saturn and it's going to square Neptune. And squares are stressors. Jupiter in Cancer is about homes and cultures and families and, you know, the planet as our home. And it's saying these are the problems. Neptune in Aries, Saturn in Aries. It's not going to go back to that. It's not going to stay there, but it's another, I think that period from the end of May 24th until the end of June is going to be very clarifying, maybe hopefully on the planet somehow. But for individuals, I think that will be a time to really say, okay, this is my reality. And let me step up to it. Let me step into it. And then Jupiter will go on and it won't look back at those planets for a while. And then we'll be on to Uranus and Gemini. So is that a good overview?
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for outlining the different planets and the times. And I want to also touch base again, talking about cycles. So I have learned that the last time, so Pluto will be in Aquarius until January of 2044. We have 20 years of this new cycle. And so the last time Pluto was in Aquarius was 1778 to 98. And this is the time of the Industrial Revolution. It was the time of the Age of Enlightenment in Europe. And
Endarkenment, if you ask me, but yes, go ahead.
and it was also both the American and the French revolutions. So
well, yes, end of Pluto in Capricorn, beginning of Pluto in Aquarius. You know, it's a really interesting thing about the French Revolution. Before the French Revolution, they never had coffee. They got coffee, off with the heads, right? They got they got juiced, they got inspired, they got manic, right? And they overthrew something that needed to be overthrown, but it was bloody. So I don't think there's any more stimulants coming, but I think it's the internet. I think it's AI. I think it's what we're doing. I actually think that we cannot get to the age. This is a personal thought. I don't know if other astrologers agree with me. You have to remember that a lot of astrology is steeped in patriarchal thinking that we have. Just, I like to keep that in mind. But I think that the only way we can get to the age of Aquarius is if we learn to balance our left and right brain. And I think the whole psychedelic thing is a lot about honoring the right brain and, you know, like revering the fact that we are whole. We're not a divided, we're not meant to be divided, but the left brain is very much in charge of the way that we see reality. So I think Aquarius is about the mind, and it's about the collective mind. And Pluto in Aquarius is going to dredge and dig up all the garbage. I mean, that's Jupiter's realm, is the garbage, you know, the waste, the compost. And it's going to ask us if we can actually make this what seems to be an evolutionary leap to bring to balance our left and right hemisphere, right? Not black and white and good and bad and high and low and male and female, right? Not all those polarities, but a dance of integration between them. And I think if we don't get that, I don't think it's guaranteed, but I think if we don't understand how to bring that all together, there's no point in the age of Aquarius if we don't balance our hemispheres. And I think that's what Pluto in Aquarius is.
Absolutely. You know, I'd love to hear Darlene's perspective on this essence of balance, but I do also want to say that, to your point of the manic energy, and also like the energy being in the fire signs right now, I feel like we're so invited to come back into more and more grounding every day with these peak energies, and to really look as a revolution of the heart, and not so much the revolution that, you know, comes from the left brain control. And so, you know, a huge prayer for that, because I'll say this last thing too, that the last time that Neptune was also in Aries was the American Civil War.
Terrible. But keep in mind, on a bigger picture, that the battle of patriarchy or dominance is to disconnect from nature, to absolutely disown our natural part of the wheel, our being part of the wheel. We want to be, humans have strived, particularly masculine humans, have strived to be above and outside of nature, to create life in a test tube kind of thing. And it's not working, because no matter what we do, we have to live in our bodies, right? And it's yes, we need to ground. Fire needs something to burn through, right? It needs a fireplace, otherwise it just ravages the land.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Darlene, what comes up for you, especially with working so deep with individuals and channeling from so many different areas? What comes up for you during these times, and your perspective?
Well, there's many layers because we're multidimensional. And so I would address, you know, what Julie said about the separation of our right and left brain. So that is true, that if we can integrate those, but there's also the level of the heart and the mind of integration. And Not only that, it's the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and Lemuria and Atlantis. Like these are all places that are divided. If you think of Atlantis in that time, it's really the mind and the heart is Lemuria. So how are we bringing those in if that resonates with you? I have people use that figure 8 and just take it around their body like this. And what that does is it helps to cross at the throat level so that we speak our truth more, coming from our discernment of our minds and our hearts. But what my understanding is, and this started in November, and I was curious, Julie, like it comes up November. November needed to bring in more ancestors so that by March, the divine feminine could come in stronger. And
Mhm.
that place of the divine feminine, my understanding is that as it comes in, and it's very different than it used to be, like that timeline that started in the 1850s was really about women's suffrage and how they came forward and the right to vote and work and to all of that. And we've gone through all of that. But this divinity or sacred feminine that is now coming in through people that are doing plant medicine as well as others, as it's coming in, the purpose of it coming in a really bigger, stronger identity way. Like, really, how do you embody the divine feminine? It's not out here anymore. And that's for men too. That's not just women, because men are leaning into that. They want the support in some way that they feel embraced, included. And
Absolutely.
this divine feminine, as it's coming in now, is the purpose or the mission is to heal the wounded masculine. And in doing that, then what happens is at the end of that, when the masculine is more aligned with who they want to be, when their identity becomes more prominent of who they are, and they're more balanced in the mind and the heart, then they are equal, right? And then they are equal. And then that's that blendedness with the right and left brain. That's the blendedness with the heart and the mind. That's the blendedness with, Atlantis and Lemuria. It all comes together. But the women, the feminine steps forward in a really nurturing sacred way. It's not about how women have been in the past. We've done that. We've fought against, we've done all of that. This is more of the healing energy. And the plant medicine is a lot women, right? It's a lot of that feminine, earthly, grounded energy. So that coming in really supports this movement. On another layer, we are going through this gauntlet because we have accumulation of karma. And these are lifetimes. Like when karma was first designed, it was designed for humanity so that if you did something that you could have done better with one lifetime, two or three, by the fourth lifetime, you could correct it, right? You could live through it. You had somebody there that was in the first lifetime but now it's accumulative. We've been here so many thousands of years that we haven't cleaned up our karma. The plant
Definitely.
medicine does that, right? The plant medicine does that. Other therapies do it too, but the plant medicine, I think, really anchors in where the trauma lies and where the stuck places are, the hindrances are. And so what's happening with that is as we're clearing and cleansing that, Earth is also in her evolution, right? And she's about had it with us. My understanding in the books that I write is it's about she offered her heart and her planet, her life force in some way to defectors and refugees. That in a timeline where there was more galactic disillusionment, galactic, division, that those that wanted to come came here. So we are really star seeds based on that. We have that genetic component because there was ancient early man here that coincided with star seeds that here. So we have it in our blood. But she's going through her own evolution of bringing forward her voice. It's not just global warming. She's bringing forward her voice of what doesn't work. She's rocking the boat. she's letting us know that she counts, and we lost touch with that. We lost touch with the ancients. We lost touch with the indigenous. We think that they're savages. We've placed them in places that are confining them. And now it's time to really bring that forward. And what's wanting to come in is cosmic order, because it's that consciousness, it's cosmic consciousness, or some people call it Christ consciousness. It's about that place of love and connection and compassion and empathy, forgiveness. You know, all of that is trying to and is coming through us in this place while we're in this. I tell people the analogy of the chrysalis really works for us now. I mean, you hear it through the decades of, you know, therapy, that you're in a chrysalis and you need to, but we're being dismantled, we're being mush, we're trying to find out what our identity is. And we're also being pushed and pulled into that new identity. And it's for us to be discerning of what does that mean? Who do you want to become? Some of those past lives, that when we go into the timelines, you know, there's an integration. It's not just healing timelines. You might have had gifts. You might have had, you know, things that, you know, talents and gifts that want to come through, that you've touched a little bit in this lifetime, right? But not necessarily embrace them, not necessarily embody them. And it's being offered to us, like, who do you want to be in 5 years? And what are you learning? What are you letting go of? And what are you learning? And what are you embracing? So that, and it feels like everything that you're saying, Julie, about the planets, you know, I never really looked much into astrology, always interested in it, but never really, but I've been listening more to it, and it's so aligned with all of us going through it. It's universal. It's not just Earth. It's very universal. And one of the things that, as multidimensional beings, you know, we always aren't choosing to be human. We choose to be whatever else is out there because maybe we could learn something from, or they're educated better, or we want to be a scientist but not human, or whatever that is. That when we choose those places and start to bring them in as our talents and as our wisdom, that we can start to do something, because we're all here in some way to contribute. We're not just here to heal. We need to contribute. And universe is very reciprocal. So if they are helping, the plant medicine included, is helping someone to adjust and heal and forgive and be all more than they can be, that information goes into the field, and then it's brought back. And there's always, what are you, if we help you, what are you going to do with us, for us? It's not an open-ended, let's just be better humans. It's okay, you're going to be a better human. Now, what are you going to do for your community, the universe, the world? How are you going to take care of Earth better? You know, it's that place. It's not universe and spirit doesn't, and it's not a, and like some people may view it as, wow, that's really harsh, but it's not. It's what's reciprocal. You put out there, it comes back. It's the same as the law of attraction, right? We put out there and we can get that back. More of sometimes what we don't want back, but we're thinking that way. We're aligned in some way, whether that's negative or positive. So there's so many layers to what we're going through, but holding on to each other is really about community and letting people feel, because as people are changing, as they're coming into more of their identity, as they're holding more of the light, as however you want to view it, as you come more into the embodiment of who you were designed to be, that what happens with that ripple effect affects everyone. We are all one energetically. And so when we shift and we change and we understand who we are through astrology or through plant medicine or any of that, we are really connecting ourselves to something much, much bigger, so that the planet in whatever way that we move forward out of the karmic hold, out of the karmic loop, where we are revitalized and we are living the fullest potential that we can be. And that may take, I would be interested to find out, where does 2030 come up and 2050? Because those feels like, for me, there's significant places, landmarks of something that has more potential to shift. So that's my spiel.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Darlene. So much wisdom and depth for both of you from what you're sharing. And I want to touch upon some of the prophecies and what I have also received in that realm. I also want to bring it to the energy field and the conduction of energy and potentially what's going on in Egypt. And so, I've shared this on webinars before, but in 2019, and I always preface this by saying that please don't believe anything I say. I think it's really important for us not to get, just connected to beliefs or ideas or anything like that, especially during these times. I really think it is about sovereignty and agency and having a chance to really have our own personal truth come online and the embodiment of that. That being said, in 2019, I was in a ayahuasca ceremony. It was through the Santo Daime, and it was with Alex Polari, an incredible maestro from Brazil who has actually gone to jail for standing up for plant medicine. And so very, very strong facilitator. And it was during the World Ayahuasca Conference in Girona, Spain, and we were in this beautiful fort. And it was one of the hardest experiences of my life, because the medicine kept showing me devastation after devastation, from fires to earthquakes to tsunamis. And I kept, crying and crying, seeing the death of so many, millions of people. And I kept asking, why are you showing this to me? Why is this coming up? And what I received in that medicine journey is something that still stays with me as I go through my days and my life. And the first really big message was that in this lifetime, enlightenment is survival and survival is enlightenment. And when I think about what enlightenment, is from the Buddhist traditions, it's really being in full acceptance of everything that is, and being in open curiosity of what is, and in equanimity, ultimately, really
No matter what. Oh, yes.
being in the balance that we were talking about. And I see that a lot with individuals right now. Like, there's so many distractions that can take us everywhere, but really practicing that essence of observation and being in that place of the witness. And so that was a really strong piece that came in. Another strong piece that came in was that there will be a time potentially in this life that it won't matter how much money we have, what place you live in, what car you drive, what your family is like. None of that will matter. The only thing that will matter is really ultimately your connection with God, spirit, source, whatever you want to call it, as the higher essence, and being able to channel that through, similar to what Darlene is saying, as part of the sacred service. And wherever we'll end up for that work is wherever we will be, and it's going to be perfect. And there'll be also a time where it'll just be prayer and song and music. And so, I think about that, and both of you have lived through, such beautiful decades on our planet, and the planet, to Darlene's point, is going through her own evolution. Does this mean that this has to be a timeline? I don't feel so. I feel like we can, through our mind and through our focus and our hearts, I feel like we can jump timelines. We can bring in these advancements of the Pluto and Aquarius. And so, Julie, I want to bring it to you in regards to Darlene's question around the 2030 marker, and potentially, because a lot of the environmentalists say we're at 1.6 degrees to this year, and we are going Yeah, it doesn't look good. We pretty much have 10 years and we're already in the red.
Yeah, I don't think, I think astrology is not predictive. I think it's navigational. Like astrology is much better. I mean, this sounds ridiculous, but astrology is much better at helping you deal with where you're at than where you're going to get to. Because you have, karma or fate is the past and destiny is the future. But the only thing that's actually happening is the present, right? And so what I can, I can look in my book and say, well, 2030, Neptune will still be in Aries, Uranus will still be in Gemini, and Pluto will still be in Aquarius, right? So we're still in it. And we're making, maybe now at this period between 23 and 26, we are making hardcore decisions about where we'll be then. But we are making them in the present, not in the future. I think all sorts of people predict all sorts of things, but the best thing is, I love what you said about enlightenment is survival and survival is enlightenment, because the way I understood what you were saying is that in our present state, whatever it is that we can be present, we can be in whatever is happening with our heart or not, right? And the hardest thing is when you're in pain or when someone that you love is in pain, right? So what we're all afraid of is that we're going to suffer in pain, right? Nobody, it's easy to think about the future if you've got food in your plate and your body's doing all relatively all right and you got shelter and all that stuff. It's when you don't that you really have to understand this thing, as I understood what you were saying about survival. Survival is existential in any given moment. And, I love I think it's the four immeasurables or something, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness and be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. But the third one is, may all beings know the sacred happiness, which is sorrowless, right? And that means you could be happy anytime, even when it's hell. And it's hard. It's hard to do that. But in a way, that's what we're trying to get to. So I can't really tell you about 2030 because the only way we're going to get to 2030 is to be in 2025. And maybe it's just because I'm a Taurus.
I love that. No, it's so perfect. I love that you're both touching upon embodiment and really
Yeah.
true presence and the
Yeah.
undercurrent of joy that's under all of what we're going through. And it's very hard to say that. And I want to bring in a question from one of the participants. Darlene, if you could speak to it first, because actually, like working with all of us work with clients, there are many people who are actually suffering right now. They're going through illness. They're going through money issues. There's a lot of relationship conflict karma that's coming up for people. And yes, there are a lot of tools and people are going through it. And so this individual, this lovely individual, has asked about the rise of cancer and in general illness. And she asked specifically for the planets that influence health, and we'll bring that over to you, Julie. But Darlene, what do you, I guess your perspective on the collective also going through physical symptoms of ascension, which I feel it is, but in general, health conditions.
Well, we're all in a body, so the body is usually the last thing that gets taken care of by many people, right? It's the assumption that it'll continue to run until it doesn't, and then we're very shocked as we get older and we find out that it's not running as smoothly as we thought that it would be, or we have an illness or a disease or whatever that is. But what I can tell people is the place to start with that, if you've had trauma in your life that is physical, whether that's abuse or surgeries or accidents or anything that feels like your body was part of that, not just the emotional level, but your body was wounded, especially if it wasn't in agreement with whatever was going on.
Mhm.
What happens is the body starts to separate consciousness from helping you, because then you start to end up with sensitivities, and you start to end up with, your digestion not working as well, because your body is crying out in some way, like, take a look at where you're wounded, take a look at what happened to me, take a look at, I didn't want that to happen. And when you go back and that Ho'opono, and probably a lot of people are familiar with that, is the I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and help, and thank you. That, just writing down first, do a laundry list of all the things that might have happened to your body that you're aware of. And each age, go back with you as the adult, the wise one right now, doing that to your body at that age. And it has to come from the heart, because it's just words otherwise. So don't rush through it. For some people that may have the need to open their heart more, it might take you 3 times for each age before you really start to say, I am so sorry.
Mm.
And it's that heartfelt place that the body wants to heal. It doesn't want to be separate from, it doesn't want to have its own identity that is not healing and ill. So you start to bring it closer and closer, so that in present day, when you take nutrition, when you eat something, when you choose to still take care of yourself in a way, mentally, physically, and emotionally, that the body is now cooperating.
Beautiful. Mhm.
I really appreciate that, and that really resonates deeply. I think, Julie, as you're nodding too, I feel like that is ultimate. Like, there's 2 things that are happening in our disconnection right now: disconnection from God and disconnection from our earth. And so how do we continue to unblock the time that the body got disconnected from that healing force, that when it's open, then you're just in full vitality, and it's natural, and you're running that energy.
So can I say something? I'm truly touched by what you said and how powerful it is, in terms of a body that's been wounded. It's also true that there's a lot less vitality in humans, because the biosphere is degrading. The air we breathe, the water, the microplastics, the bleh, right? And we have to understand that the levels of illness is also a reminder that we are part of the natural world, right? That we are absolutely expressing what the earth is going through in our own bodies. So, and I don't think so. In astrology, everybody has an ascendant, which has to do with the time of birth that you were born, so it's the identity, it's the identity part, and it's the part that defends your own life. And it takes everything personally, right? Everything that happens to us is happening to me, right? And the oh God, I'm sorry, I turned off the sound, and I can't. I apologize. I was warned. Anyway, everything that happens to us feels personal, and it triggers us, and we have to heal things. And to me, the psychedelics really allow people to understand the heart's connection to the body and the planet, like the individual reaction to pain, let's say, or suffering, and how it connects us to the planetary sphere that we're part of. I hope that was coherent. I'm really sorry about the phone. I don't know why I couldn't turn it off.
I just want to say something. Were you going to go, Julie? It's fine.
No, feel free. I'd like you to say something.
You bring up the water aspect, and because we are all one in this, moving through this catalyst, moving through this gauntlet, it's really important. And I find out with almost every client, they need to stay hydrated with clear water, because it's a ripple effect of how it You may not think that you're part of the ocean and part of the streams and part of that, but when you nurture yourself with clear, fresh, and you consciously drink it, right?
Mm.
When you do that, you are sending that energy of the possibility for other things to clear.
Mhm.
Maybe 1%, but you're still sending it. And the other thing that I find out that's missing with people are minerals. Like our
Mhm.
minerals are draining through stress, through what we eat, coffee, caffeine, chocolate, all of that in some way robs us of the minerals, especially calcium. And so, when we honor the body and we take minerals, whether that's trace minerals or all of the minerals that we have, and we hydrate, we are providing the foundation for what makes us work better, for our brains, for whatever. It's pretty simple. Some people need vitamin B12 more than anything, but that combination of things for most people really is what they need, plus change their diet. But it all is the ripple effect of, if I take care of myself health-wise in that way of drinking clear water and everything, your energy changes, one, your vibration comes up, you have more vitality, and it ripples through everything that is toxic. Don't think that you are inadequate or that you don't have power in some way to have an effect on something that is much, much larger than each of us. Because we do. And as a collective, we really do.
Yeah.
Right, but we still have that individual reaction, save your own life kind of thing. That's really, I guess, what I was trying to say is that that reactivity is very personal and very contracting,
Mhm.
actually. Yeah.
Yes, it's again, the word balance of our own water and really committing to ensuring that our temple is taken care of. And then I feel like that changes, to both of your points, that changes the consciousness of what can I actually do for my community to ensure that there's clean water. Like, why is there even an issue that, that my system is going through this mass explosion of toxins, which is cancer, at the end of the day. And so right now, as to the point of the Hopis, so the Hopi prophecy, I wanted to touch upon that because I draw a lot of energy from it. The Hopi communities, as you both probably know, are in northern Arizona. And there's this beautiful prophecy rock there. And me and a friend of mine, when I was doing my, I guess, vision quest in the Four Corners, we actually tried to go there and we did find this prophecy rock. And on prophecy rock, there's an image, and there are two options for humanity. And on one of the lines, and there are three circles which kind of represent the world wars or some sort of major global, catastrophe. And the first line shows that, the humans are not connected to the heart, first and foremost, so they're separate. The duality happens, and they're also separate from the earth. And there's a break off, and they kind of fall off of this cliff. And then the second line is the line where it's unified and they're connected, and there's survival, and they make it. And so to that point, it's like right now our planet obviously is going through it, and they call it the age of purification. They're saying that we're going from the fourth world into the fifth world. And during this time, there's going to be calamities, but they really are hopeful. They're hopeful that we are going to transition. And I really try to also hold that, like, okay, let's keep the hope and joy alive. We are powerful, our minds are powerful, our hearts are powerful. Let's come up with technologies and ways and regeneration to clean up and purify and to really make it. And so and then there's all of this information about climate resilience and what we, individually and collectively need to start doing, which is for me, like more sanctuaries, food security, water security. And so, I'm curious, Julie, you're in Toronto, Darlene, you're in upstate New York. What are you sensing in your communities? Is there any talk of these initiatives? How are you interacting with your communities in this way? Julie, maybe you can start us off.
I think everyone's just freaked out about the election and the tariffs. That's what you feel here. You don't, like it's all gone by the wayside for the moment because whoever you think should be the prime minister is kind of, you're a bit obsessed about wanting to make that happen because everyone's so terrified of what's happening to the economy. It's a little easier if you're as old as I am not to, take it all that personally because whatever, but I do for the kids and stuff. I think that everything we need to make it to that second world that you described there, we have. I think all we need for innovation and to deal with the situation, we could implement it. I think that it's the will that isn't there. It's the will, right? So it's the 1%, however you see it, the will to actually allow that to happen. And in the big city like Toronto, you really feel the power of the money and the will not being able to understand that that's what is going to have to happen. Right. But it's not that it's absolutely nothing. It's like it's all there. It's all percolating up through everything. There's innovations that make a difference percolating up in all fields everywhere. Right. But there's also this tremendous heaviness of, the relentless sense of progress and money and all that stuff. I don't know if you feel that so strongly in other places as you do in a big city. Yeah.
Yeah, up by us, there's because we're up in the mountains, so there's the several layers. There's the people that are neighbors that are very pro-government as it is right now.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
They're also very angry and they're also very committed and not being able to see anything else. So neutrality is not part of their consciousness at the moment. And then there's the like-mindedness. So, I come off the mountain to go be with the people that we can have a conversation about that's very different than is up here,
Right.
There's such a contrast,
Right.
to be able to sit down and with a group of people that are more like-minded that can sort through this in a very different way and see it as maybe necessary for something else to come through, and what are we letting go of and what are we embracing and what's changing and with us, and how can we hold neutrality in a way which is really the heart space, which neutral to me and how I've been taught through the dimensionals is it's not about not action. It's about being able to hold neutral in your emotional level so that you can be heard. That whatever action you take, you're not in this tizzy of anger and resentment and where you're not going to get heard, you're just going to get more conflict. It's the neutrality of feeling that in your body, but it's also very stabilizing. That neutrality is very stabilizing because you're speaking your truth and you're coming from your heart and you're coming from your third chakra and your willingness to speak your truth, no matter what happens out here. Whether you agree with people or they agree with you, it doesn't really matter. So in my community, I have living in two worlds. There's those that are just really angry and upset and they watch TV and everything upsets them. And then there's the other community that you can really embrace and have a good time, because the other community doesn't seem like they want to have a good time. They like the drama.
Could I say something about them? Them, those people? Um, I I think that anger and greed and all those things that sort of motivate them are they're very much a kind of energy that keeps you from having to feel how much pain and suffering there is in the world, right? And so there's a reason why people cling to the I don't know, the government as it is, I guess at the moment we could say, let's just euphemize it, right? There's a reason why people cling to that, because it's unbearable in a way to actually feel the destruction of the biosphere and, of the life, whatever. And I think it's something I've started thinking about more, because it's very hard to understand why anybody would support the government as it is right now. Like it feels crazy. But when I understand the human capacity and the level of terror that we can feel and how painful it is to allow oneself to feel the suffering around us, let's say in your own sphere, just the people that who have cancer or whose children are not well or whatever, that it's much easier to rush in and say, well, why don't you do this and have you tried that, and right.
Right.
And so when I think of, I'm starting to think of people who think like you're sort of expressing. I have to say, in the city here, I know that that's how it is, but here, it doesn't, I don't feel that. I don't feel that what you're describing here. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I think when it comes to being compassionate, we need to understand that we need to have compassion for people, not to have pity or not to look down on them, but to understand the human condition that makes us so terrified that we would not think that we should feed everybody.
Right. And the flip side of that, Julie, is that I'm noticing more so that a lot of those that are very steeped in that anger or whatever that energy is, right? They are empaths.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to say, I think.
They are empaths and they don't know how to let whatever's coming in through them. Like we're designed as empaths to not hook into anything. We let that go through us, right?
Right,
Right.
right.
And we can
Yeah,
assist, but we have to let whatever isn't ours to go through us. And I do think that they're more empathic, or they haven't identified themselves as empathic. So they're stuck like with
that's
what
right.
isn't theirs, and there's
It's
no,
fear.
yeah.
So, just because I'm an astrologer and because I feel like my words aren't actually that useful unless they're connected to astrology, Neptune in Aries is exactly this conversation. Neptune in Aries is exactly about, are we going to contract and defend against our empathy? Are we going to be, protecting our own little corner and, blaming other people for all the suffering? Or are we going to really open ourselves to the feeling of suffering, even the one that comes with outrageous ignorance,
Mm.
if I might. But yeah, it's Neptune in Aries for sure.
I love that you're both bringing compassion to the whole spectrum of the human emotion right now and how people are reacting. And I think that's really beautiful because I feel like you're right, Julie. Anger tends to be an upper emotion and underneath it is actually grief. And
Yeah.
here it's agency and control. And I have some sort of thought
That's
about
right.
control. And then you realize, oh my gosh, I have no control. I'm an empath. I'm feeling everything. Oh, this is too much. How do I deal with it? Okay, let me get the tools. And wow, I'm actually feeling, and I can't not feel that there's a genocide happening on the other side of the planet. And how do I, become the calmest nervous system in my own home so that I don't channel that energy and I can actually channel peace out. So I feel like it's as more and more people are awakening to their empathic nature, which now everyone's kind of coming alive, right, to that. I feel that we won't be able to be in denial. And we're kind of we're in, like, I think also to the Piscean age, right? Neptune, Pisces, like, no offense to my Pisces, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Julie, no offense to my Pisces
offense.
friends and, colleagues, but there's an essence with Pisces that seems to be kind of dreamy and not really anchored in. And there's a sense of maybe a bit of victimhood. And we were Neptune in Pisces for 14 years, which was beautiful because it was trauma-informed care and plant medicine. And we really got into the Piscean connection. And now it's in Aries of responsibility, agency, directness. And so I think hopefully we'll be able to again balance it with this Jupiter and Cancer, sweet, sweet nurturance of care and community. And
I have to say,
say,
there's a great aspect between Jupiter and Saturn. Saturn in Pisces, Jupiter in Cancer in the fall, where they're just going to trine each other. They're both going to station in degrees, and they're going to trine each other. I'm really interested to see what happens at that time, because it is about compassion. But I want to say something about Pisces, a very little known or little acknowledged thing. Pisces can be extremely S&M, sadistic and masochistic. It's only when it comes to that place of being able to hold suffering in itself that it doesn't go to those extremes, because a Pisces who can't feel just projects all that onto someone else and says, yeah, you suffer. I'm not going to suffer. You suffer. Right. And I think the age of Pisces has been really about those extremes. Right. And then every once in a while, through the middle comes a true soul of compassion. Right. But boy, has it been a hard age, the age of Pisces. It has not been kind to humans and the planet and all that stuff. Yeah.
yes, yes. And to that point, I want to also highlight one of the works that really, again, has illuminated and educated me. Gwayne Dyer, this is a really incredible shout out and honor to Gwayne Dyer, who is a British Canadian, actually author and historian. And his latest book is called Intervention Earth, Life-Saving Ideas from the World's Climate Leaders. And he and his partner actually went and interviewed over 100 researchers in the climate change and resilience movement. And he talks actually, speaking about water, one of the main points that he brings forward is that what we're going into as this time is actually a time of water wars. And he highlights what, again, with the heat that's coming through the Aries, he highlights the droughts and the protection of water that's going to happen. He talks about the Indus River, so India and Pakistan. He highlights that as the glaciers in the Himalayas are melting at record speeds, there's less water coming through Tibet, northern India, where they have the protection of the water first, into Kashmir, into Pakistan. And so there's been a treaty that they've had for 60 years. This treaty is under review because Pakistan saying India's potentially taking more and damming the water. Both countries have nuclear weaponry. And there's this contraction that's happening. The Colorado River feeds 6 states that right now are going through their own drought process. Then we have, of course, actually Canada and the US have had their issues over water. And then we have Mexico, where so much of the food product. And then he also gets into climate refugees. And so I think about the movements that are going to happen. And again, to the prophecies, the Hopi speak of northern Arizona as a place of sanctuary. And then in some of the other indigenous prophecies, they talk about the backbone of Turtle Island, which is really the Rockies. So that's why I think a lot of actually millionaires and billionaires are moving into Montana, buying a lot of land there. Of course, Colorado is going to be an incredible place for hosting. And so, Julie, maybe this is a question of astrocartography and where some of those ley lines are at. Do you work in that so much? Okay.
No, I mean, if I wanted to, I sort of would know how to do it, but I don't, I'm really mostly concerned with the journeys of individuals through their lives. Yeah, I had to focus. But there are astrologers who do that kind of thing. And I think you probably know more about it than I do. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, it's fascinating to know where some of those main layers are. Darlene, um, let's talk about, if you're open to it, let's talk about the scrolls. I want to bring it back to what you said with the divine feminine and how the divine feminine right now, there's a lot of goddess energy, the earth being the main energy, and what you have actually received as far as a transmission for more support for this embodiment of the divine feminine.
Well, I think we're just coming into more of a deeper understanding of what it means, because we've talked about it for decades, if not centuries. And it's the ownership of the heart. It's the ownership of the compassion and the empathy and all of that. And these scrolls, I was introduced to them by an incarnation that I had in Egypt back in whenever Hatshepsut was leader back then. And these scrolls came from Lemuria, and they were hidden, which I understand now that they have been opened. And I believe that, we're talking about, you sent that out to a few people about what's happening over in Egypt and what they discovered under one of the great pyramids. And I believe that that is in some way connected, whether the only information that I can get on that, which feels very divinely masculine and feminine, is that there's something about light and sound that is within those containers that create power. And I think that that is, whether that is power, it's not about being a generator at all. That's not the word that they would use, but there's something about light and sound that we take no consideration about, or that we have no knowledge about. And there's something there so the pyramid is a capstone. It's a reminder that there's something there that we need to pay attention to. And whether that happens in our generation or down the line, it's open to us. So something like those scrolls feel like they are the wisdom of the ages, whatever that was that came in through Lemuria to bring in the divinity in some way, masculine and feminine, that whatever that those scrolls were that held that energy, held that frequency, it's now time to, just like Mother Earth is going through her evolution and we're going through the chrysalis, that these scrolls in some way assist, energetically, how we are moving through it and what we can do with it and how it's affecting us, whether we embody it or not.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it's so interesting that with the SAR technology, like this discovery of what's happening underneath the Great Pyramids. And, because, Julie, to the astrology, the three main pyramids point up to Orion's belt. And to Graham Hancock's amazing research, the Sphinx was facing Leo at 10,500 years ago. And so now they found, what was it? Eight vertical wells.
Yeah.
With the coil of potential staircase, we don't know what it is, 2,100 feet down, potentially 6,000 feet down. That with this new technology, talk about Pluto in Aquarius, they've discovered this. And Darlene, you and I might be taking a group to Egypt in October.
Oh, wow, how exciting.
Yes, it'd be amazing for you to join us as well. And
wouldn't I love that?
yes, and this piece of potential access to the Earth's truth conduction system. You know, Tesla felt this, and it's so interesting that Elon took Tesla's name, you know. It's all, you know, it's very, very interesting. But Tesla, it wasn't about zero energy. It was about taking energy that's being conducted from power centers
Right.
and having it be freely shared without
Yes,
wirelessly.
right.
Right. And so talk about cancer and illness and toxins, because then on the other side, we have the 5G frequency. So, you
Oh
know,
my God.
where do we turn our energy, right? So, yeah, it's
So
really
you said
fascinating.
2,100. Are there 2,100 stairs?
No, they don't even know if it's stairs. My sense is that it's actually copper. It's copper
Oh,
coils conducting energy around
I see.
these what felt like water
So why
wells.
did you say 2,100?
And 2,100 feet is this how deep these wells go.
And then what?
And then there's a whole structure which they think is a massive city.
Oh, because 2,100 is how many years a fixed star will spend in a sign. Yeah, I was just curious.
I love that. And also, like, talk about the sacred numbers, everything that the Egyptians were using for sacred geometry and the
Yes.
connection to the celestial was like to the exact points.
So one of the amazing things about astrology is that it's not, it's not like the rocks out there are affecting us, right? It's about the fact that human beings have used the heavens symbolically to figure out what the nature of to be human is. Like, so if the moon takes 29 days to go around and a woman has a 29-day cycle, then we can look at the moon and learn about the mothers and the women, right? And all that stuff. And every planet has that kind of thing to it. So one of the things about astrology that really speaks to me, and these are hard things to give words to, is that it's always there. Like no matter what happens down here, no matter how much we lose, no matter how much wisdom we lose or gain or whatever, we always start back there, right? The sun will always hit the stone on the equinox, right? In the same place. And astrology has this kind of astrology is like a language. And then you take that language and you take the sacred geometry of that language and you do the thing like you're describing. And it it it's mind-blowing to think that we had that and we lost that. Yeah, it's mind-boggling. But we can't lose it because it's still the sacred geometry is right up there. It
Yeah.
can't be lost. It's very
Just have to align back with it.
the day I realized that, I thought, well, then it's okay, whatever, whatever it is. If it can't be lost, I'm not going to worry then.
And how it's coming online. Like I love that. I love that we're having these discoveries um and the attunement to the electromagnetic fields and how we're turning that online in our hearts and in our brains and how plant medicines are helping us. And then we haven't even gone into the DNA upgrades and what's happening with the 13 strands and what, you know, some of the beings that you channel, Darlene, had shared around that. Do you want to speak to that a bit? We have a few more minutes.
Yeah, well, everything that we do that aligns us with our heart or heart energy or compassion, love, love being the more of the priority that we can relate to, it is changing our DNA. It changes it, it opens it up, it offers us something more of who we are as humans. And so it's like you can't get it wrong if you just start loving yourself first so that you can give more to others, if you choose to. It's that open-hearted loving place that when you make decisions from that, it changes our DNA, it changes our body chemistry, it changes the endorphins in our body, it helps us to be happier and more content and all of that. So it's rather simple, but we have to get out of our own way.
Well, yes. That's funny.
Oh, you're silent.
Thank you. And today, one of my clients said, get out of your head and life will go on. And so I just, love that. It's so simple and so clear. There's been some questions coming in and also just recognition. Someone said the work you're doing is part of the solution to our world. You're part of the force for the good. Thank you so much for these kind comments and for each person really out in our community and globally who's, really dedicated and devoted to this work. I know we see it every day, right? What people are going through, whether you're purging for 13 hours, all the anxiety of your ancestors, or whether you are, talking to your child a different way and holding that space of presence with the child as they're going through their tantrum, different than how your mom and dad did to you. Like massive, massive points of change. So I want to end. Thank you both so much, by the way. It was, so lovely to receive both of your wisdom and expertise. And I want to end on a quote again from a Hopi elder. And let me see if I can locate it. I would like to share this one. Okay. So this is one of the Hopi elders from the Bear clan. And he states, you have been telling the people that this is the 11th hour. Now you must go and tell the people that this is the hour. And there are things to be considered. Where are you living? What are you doing? What are your relationships? Are you in the right relationships? Where is your water? Know your garden. It is time to speak your truth. Create your community. Be good to each other. Do not look outside yourself for a leader. There's a river flowing now very fast. It is so great and swift that there are those who will be afraid that they will try to hold on to the shore. They will feel they're being pulled apart and will suffer greatly. Understand that the river knows its destination. The elders say we must let go of the shore, push off into the middle of the river, keep our eyes open and our heads above the water. And I say, see who is there with you. Hold fast to them and celebrate. At this time in history, we are to take nothing personally, least of all ourselves. For the moment we do, our spiritual growth and journey comes to an end. The time of the lone wolf is over. Gather yourselves, banish the word struggle from your attitude and vocabulary. All that we do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration. We are all about to go on a journey. We are the ones we have been waiting for. Thomas Banyaka, speaker of the wolf, fox, and coyote, Bear clan, elder of the Hopi Nation. And I can't believe that he touched upon almost everything that we talked about. And I hope that this is an inspiration and something that will keep the hope and the celebration alive for all of us during these times. Thank you both so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Darlene. It's good. Thank you.
Yes, you too.
And thank you to Cheryl and our wonderful volunteers and Gordon, who's here helping us with the tech. And we, of course, as an organization, we are all it's a volunteer board, an amazing 20+ volunteers that help us to put these events on. And of course, our 1.5 paid staff, and Jay Katz, our executive director, and Cheryl Hanula, who is our operations and community manager. So grateful for both of you for your support, and wish you all an amazing rest of your cycle during these times. All right, until next time, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.